Hi, I'm Tim Tyler, and this is a video about celebrity cloning. To start with, an overview of various different types of cloning. There's embryonic cloning, where you take an existing embryo in an early stage of development, pull it into pieces, and then implant the embryo fragments into surrogate mothers, either the same surrogate mother if you've got one who wants to have twins, or multiple different surrogate mothers if you don't mind the embryos being raised in different wombs. That creates identical twins, and identical twins are of interest to scientists because it allows them to study the relative importance of genes and the environment upon development. Scientists have access to some identical twins already, but they want access to a range of different types of identical twins that have been separated at various different stages in their life, including shortly after conception. There's currently a shortage of that type of identical twin. That type of cloning is relatively simple to do, and we can do it today. However, it has relatively limited benefits. Only a few scientists are interested. The next sort of cloning is therapeutic cloning, which involves taking DNA from an existing adult organism, injecting it into an egg cell, and then allowing the egg cell to split, divide, and develop. That produces an embryo, which is then harvested at a young age. The embryo is used to extract stem cells and a variety of tissue types for it, and these then have applications in the organism that the original DNA came from. Therapeutic cloning looks as though it's going to have a number of applications. It's in competition with other sources of stem cells. You can obtain stem cells from bone marrow and from other adult tissues, but if you're getting them from an embryo, you've got a more flexible kind of stage of the developmental process, so you've got more options for generating a variety of different cell types than you would have if you're working from an adult organism. So looks as though there's future potential for therapeutic cloning in curing and generating transplant materials for a range of different diseases. And then there's reproductive cloning. Reproductive cloning involves taking DNA from an existing adult organism, injecting it into an egg cell, allowing the egg cell to develop, and then producing an adult organism, allowing it to become a teenager and then a fully grown adult. Most of the rest of this video is about the significance of reproductive cloning. Such cloning will increase the fertility of many members of the population. Currently, there's a substantial fraction of the population that can't have kids, either because they're too young, or because they're past the age of menopause, or because they've had prostate surgery, or because they suffer from impotence, or because they're bedridden, or because they suffer from diseases, sexually transmitted diseases, for example. So there's a variety of people who can't have kids, and all of those people, with the development of cloning technology, will become fertile and will be able to reproduce themselves if they want to do so. So that's going to be a fairly major change. The scale of the change will depend on how many people decide to go for cloning, but it is possible that it will result in more births than would otherwise have taken place. The other main aspect of cloning is that it enables existing tried and tested phenotypes to be reproduced in relatively large quantities. So, for example, if you've got a secretary or a receptionist who you think is one of the best ones that's available, then in theory you could make multiple copies of that individual, wait 20 years or so for them to develop, and then deploy them throughout your organisation. Who's going to be first in the reproductive cloning queue? It seems likely that infertile individuals will become the first clones. However, another quite likely source of clones is existing celebrities. There have been a number of them who've expressed interest in cloning themselves voluntarily, thereby perpetuating their franchise, but also people who are celebrities are also among the most likely people to be involuntarily reproductively cloned. Also, cloning is not limited to the living. While existing celebrities, such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, have expressed interest in cloning, so have dead celebrities, such as Michael Jackson. There's no limit to the age at which a celebrity can be cloned. All you need is some of their DNA, and DNA lasts reasonably well. It's a highly stable molecule, so you can often recover it from hairbrushes and other personal items of the individual who you want to clone. When the topic of celebrity cloning comes up, I often think of the play Insignificance, which stars Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn Monroe and Albert Einstein. Here's a clip from Insignificance.
Could I explain something to you?
Certainly. What?
theory of relativity.
It would be interesting to see a version of insignificance made with a real Marilyn Monroe and a real Albert Einstein, although it might take a few years to get an Albert Einstein of the correct vintage. For those of you not familiar with Marilyn Monroe, she's this lady.
I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. I wanna be loved by you, the deedly 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 dum, boop boopy doop.
One Marilyn Monroe was widely regarded as being a good thing, and I figure that if one was good, then two would be better. And once we've got two, then we can have as many as we like, and I figure that quite a few would probably be built. A Marilyn would make a good addition to many families. If they can't get a job in the movie industry, then you can always marry them off to some rich and successful neighbour. And having a successful member of your family is good for you, helps support you in your old age and that kind of thing. So I figure that there'll be financial motivation for many people to produce clones of celebrities and try and monetize them. Lastly, a few words about the significance of sexual recombination. Cloning dispenses with sex, and so the reasons why we have sex in the first place might give us pause for thought before we engage in too much cloning. There's two main theories about the origin of sex that explain how the twofold cost of sex can be paid for, and one of them is a mutation repair theory that suggests that we've got sex in order to purge the population of deleterious mutations, and the other one is a theory about parasites that suggests that the reason we have sex is in order to generate rapidly changing phenotypes that act as a defence against parasites. So parasites evolve rapidly, and unless the hosts evolve rapidly too, then the parasites gain the upper hand in the host-parasite arms race, and sex provides a kind of continuous introduction of genetic diversity that helps fight off parasite infections. So those are the two main theories of the origin of sex. In the context of cloning, one thing that the mutation repair theory suggests is that we should avoid making multiple serial copies of existing organisms. So in the same way as if you make a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, then the third generation copy is of relatively poor quality, then we don't necessarily want to make a clone of a clone of a clone, because we'll have a mutational meltdown basically, and the third generation clone will be have many severe deleterious mutations. However, we're going to be able to put the human genome into a database and synthesize it from scratch before injecting it into an organism, and one of the things that means is that we can use modern computer technology in order to do error correction and error detection, and removing any genes that we don't like basically, and one of the things that means is that making a copy of a copy of a copy won't present much of a problem in the future. So I don't foresee the meltdown theory of the reason why we've got sex as being a terribly significant reason to avoid cloning. The other possibility is the parasite theory. In the parasite theory, then the model is that the clones, if you make enough clones, then they all succumb to the same disease, and obviously that's undesirable. You don't want all your clones to suffer from the same disease. It seems to me this is only likely to be a problem if we generate vast numbers of clones. The farming industry uses clones quite a bit, and although they have problems with disease, they don't manage them by making individuals all genetically different from each other. Also, it seems that there's going to be ways of making populations resistant to disease by generating kind of cellular level genetic diversity that doesn't have much effect on the phenotype but acts as a defence against parasites. So we'll be able to do something better than sex basically, which would be to engineer in disease resistant genes whilst maintaining the form of the adult phenotype. Unless we make loads of clones, then the parasite theory is probably not going to be a big cause of problems anyway. Many of the clones won't be geographically next to each other for much of the time. They can be separated around the planet, and again that will reduce the chance of disease being transmitted from one clone to another. So the fact they'll have a similar immune system and similar susceptibilities to disease probably won't make that much difference unless you build huge vast clone armies, which seems some distance in the future. So I don't see the reasons why we've got sex as being much of a barrier to creating asexually reproduced individuals. Enjoy.